back with a new video, and today we will have a money talk. I think it's very important, especially as young adults, as teenagers, learning a bit more about money and how to use it properly is very important, especially if you don't really have anyone that has taught you along the way or from early childhood. We have a lot of resources online, but I feel like sometimes it can be overwhelming. And realistically, you just have to start at the basics to progress somewhere. I think this is one of the things that can really set you up for life. So I will try to work through a few pieces of advice, tips, mistakes to avoid when it comes to money, especially as a young adult or a teenager, that I think are very important and that I think everyone can learn from. I don't think I'm very financially literate, but like I said, I think it's important to start at basics. I won't waste more time, and I will start talking about credit cards. So if you're not interested, even though I think it's a very important topic, I will leave a timestamp. Do not pay the minimum amount that is due, even if it's a fixed interest. Try to pay off even like an extra fiver, an extra tenner, an extra 20 euro on top of what is the minimum amount that is due every month. You won't even realize how much that will build up in the long term, and maybe this month that 20 euro does not seem like a big deal to you. Put it towards paying off your credit card or your loan. It will build up, and you never know, once you bring down the payment, maybe in 2 or 3 months, you will be grateful that you lowered it down, because maybe you will have a more financially difficult month, and that 20 euro difference can make a lot, especially in the long term, and especially if you keep on paying off, like let's say 20 or 50 euro extra every month. Don't ignore statements and policy changes. You never know, you might spot some errors or some sneaky charges that you can put up for question, or simply a notice and change terms that might affect the way you're repaying the credit card loan. Definitely do not miss your payments. Like, this is like stabbing yourself, and this will pull you down in the future. It might seem small, it might seem just like one small missed payment. First of all, it might be a rippling effect, so you might lean in maybe to miss another payment, like, oh, it's not a big deal. It is quite a big deal, and even missing one payment can really throw you down. Multiple credit cards, you should avoid this at all costs. Like, if you need a credit card to begin with, if you're taking out a credit card loan or you're putting things on your credit card, that should be literally final resource. That is, if you really need something. If you need to take out a second one and it's for something not necessary, you really don't need to be doing that, because it's on a credit card to begin with. There are emergencies, but then your priority is to pay the credit card off. But if you have two with high interest, it's just a recipe for disaster. At that point, literally try to simply borrow money in cash from people you know. Do not take a second credit card loan. Also, with missed payments, it can increase your the interest, and you will most likely be charged a late fee, which could have just been used to pay your overall credit card loan, but now you're paying money on top of that, and obviously it will be affecting your credit card score. Avoid using credit cards for daily expenses. You might get into just a negative habit of just tapping without even paying attention or being conscious of what you're tapping and paying for. This can just lead to you being constantly financially stressed and put you under pressure. This can also just lead you into a cycle of overspending, especially with money you don't have, because at the end of the day, credit card, you don't actually have that money. This is a very basic one, but please do not share your credit card information. You'd be surprised how some people can be a bit careless, even making purchases online with public Wi-Fi, or just being careless with showing your credit cards online. it can be very dangerous and it can even go unseen. And lastly, credit cards don't necessarily have to be a negative thing. If you learn how to use them properly, they can be a very good tool to use. The most important thing is not to develop a negative relationship first and try to start fresh with a positive one. Do a lot of research, look at your credit card options, look at your responsibilities and what benefits they can offer. And hopefully that will set you for fair ground to use your credit card safely. Now I'll just begin with the general money talk. One of the biggest things I know for myself also, I think this is the thing that tears me down the most, is impulse buying, especially with pricier things. If it's above €20, you really should consider if you need the thing. What I like to do, especially if I'm buying clothes, let's say I buy a pair of shoes for 30, 40, €50 and there's one last pair left, I buy it on impulse. Make sure you keep the receipt, let it sit with you at least for 3 days to a week, and you will really know if you want that thing. Worst case scenario, if you don't want it, you can return it and you get your money back, and you will be guilt-free, and maybe you might even feel a bit proud. Also with impulse buying, sometimes I feel like I tend to impulse buy if I go on a lot of window shopping sprees, especially if you're meeting up friends. Try to maybe go to a cafe. It's better to buy like a €5 coffee and sit there for a while than go stroll around shops. You know, you might be tempted more to buy things. Like even today, I went for coffee with one friend. We paid our €5 for a coffee. We had a nice chat, and I went for just an innocent stroll with another friend, and I ended up spending €50 on shoes that I probably have another pair of in my room. So don't let deals get to you. Sometimes it feels like that there's a good deal that you need it right now, that it might not be available again, when in reality, first of all, the deal might be and probably will be back. So if you will really need it, you can probably buy it again. And second thing, if you didn't buy it full price and there isn't such a huge discount, you don't need it. You are just buying it out of basically greed. You know, you just want it because it's just a small bit cheaper. But the fact is, if it was that small bit more expensive, you wouldn't get it. That means you really don't need it. Setting a budget is a really good way to start fighting the kind of impulse buying. So let's say you pay off whatever you have to pay off. Let's say, you know, traveling costs, and you pay your rent, you leave aside money for food, and then you can give yourself a kind of like discretionary spending budget. Let's say you give yourself €50 for 2 weeks, and even if you keep that number in your head, you will be less likely to impulse buy, because you might have this thought of like, oh, what if I find something nice next week and I spent my €50 on the first day? But you do have to try and be a bit more strict about it with yourself, because then it won't really work. If you don't really like that, you can go to the traditional way with pen and paper, or even just keeping the notes of the discretionary spending you're doing in your phone notes app. And once you see it all together, it's easier to see how much money you're wasting on things you're not even using daily. Also, if you're making purchases, even small purchases like buying a new t-shirt that you probably have at home, or even anything in general, try to pay in cash. I feel like actually feeling cash leave your hands, like, it makes you realize that you're actually spending money, especially when you're tapping with your phone. It can just kind of feel like you're just tapping your phone, you're not paying, which is not the case. Your money is leaving your bank account after all. So try to stick to cash where you can, because it does give you a bit of more real sense of how much money you're spending. And sometimes it will make you think twice when you feel the money leaving your hands. Finding alternatives to either your daily purchases, your frequent purchases, or to even kind of like your impulse purchases. Let's say, for example, you go to, I don't know, you go to TK Maxx and you see a very nice bag, but it's €50. Sometimes all you gotta do is go online and you will see that you're actually not getting a deal. I feel like, especially in big retail stores, it might seem like, oh, this is the last piece, this is the best deal you're gonna get, especially on a branded item. But with a simple Google search, you will see that you're either paying the same price or it's like €1 less, which makes it not seem as much of a, as much of a big save as they kind of advertise it to be. Also, going back to budgeting, if you go on Pinterest or even Google, there are so many templates for budgeting based on your goals, based on your situations. Like, let's say if you're a student and you have to specifically dedicate an amount of money towards, a particular reason, like college or, medications, whatever. Setting a budget and also writing down your goals on how much you'd like to save, I feel like really does help. Once you put it down again on pen and paper, it's more clear for you to see what you still have to achieve, what you have achieved, and where you can improve on. Also, when you're saving, I've seen online these little plastic books that you can use, but I simply prefer to use simple, plain, old envelopes, and I set aside the amount of money I've decided to put away, weekly or monthly, and that way you just don't touch the money and it doesn't bother you, and when you have to pay for it, you have a dedicated section you can just go to and you see how much money you have for that specific expense. I know they have special kind of like folders online that you can buy, but I don't really think they're necessary. Same thing goes with the budgeting templates. Yeah, unless you really find a cheap one that you think would help you or encourage you, go ahead. But at the end of the day, you're not trying to make another expense. This is just a tool you can use to help. There are a lot of great free resources online. You probably just have to do a bit more research and you will come across something either similar, if not identical, but for free. Things you buy constantly, try to buy in bulk. Like a good example is when I go to college, I like to grab myself peanut butter cups as a snack, and I pay $1.80 for like the little pack of two. $1.80 for a pack of 2 Reese's cups, whereas you can get like a pack of them for €3 or €4, where they have like 4 or 5 packets. So you're getting 4 packets for what you pay at college campus, for 2 of them. Buying multi-packs often helps you save, even if it's something that you like to indulge in, like let's say Monster or things like that. If you're gonna choose to kind of spend money on more wasteful things, at least try to do it smartly. So finding alternatives, or even choosing this store brand version of things can really help save some money. Like let's say even if you go to Aldi or Lidl, sometimes they can have like the official branded gummies. Like let's say even wine gummies is a popular example. Let's say wine gummies is €3 for a packet, and then Tesco will have their own branded wine gummies, which are basically, in my opinion, identical, but they would have it for 90 cents or €1.10, saving you sometimes even up to €2 or €3. Never miss an opportunity to learn about money. Learn how to invest your money, learn how to save your money, learn how to properly, store your money, even how to make more money, obviously, and also how to get paid for the same amount of effort and time and dedication. Education on any topic never hurt anyone, even if it's reiterating something again. That just helps your mind remember the piece of information. So sometimes you will see the basic points being repeated over and over again, but that can seem annoying at first, but that might help your mind actually retain the information. And again, just even reading books, you can shoot two birds with one stone. You know, you're improving your literacy and you're also learning about money. And if you like to put something on in the background, like let's say you're doing your makeup and you like to play YouTube in the background, um, you might learn something new by just simply putting on an educational video about money in the background, or just, you know, listening to podcasts maybe, or even just following a few Instagram or TikTok accounts talking about money and financial literacy. It's very important to keep the cash and the money flow into the house. You cannot be spending money and have your money coming in stop. Like let's say, especially if you're working full time, you can't be only working 2 shifts a week, but spending money as if you're working 3, you know. Passive income is very important, but I feel like there's a lot of traps online and scams, as we know of them. But it doesn't hurt to, again, try to educate yourself on them. Like, I don't have a lot of knowledge on investments, and I'm absolutely blue in the world of stocks. But taking one thing at a time and getting the basics down of simply saving money, and just even attempting to invest, like let's say €2 or €3, you know, something that wouldn't hurt if you lose, something that you can compare to, let's say, one coffee, is a good way to start though. With trial and error, you can see, and there's no better way to learn than first-hand experience. If you invest the €2 in, let's say, a stock, and you see it absolutely plummet, you know that you can lose that money, and you can even just see by the pattern it's going. There are a lot of Instagram and TikTok creators that provide a lot of easy to digest information based on these topics, so I definitely recommend searching some up. Also, it's very important to learn the basic terminology, like even simply understanding what assets and liabilities actually mean, will make you feel more confident when you're even continuing to learn. And to improve your financial literacy, you will feel more confident, and it will be easier to actually grasp and understand the knowledge that you're trying to retain. When you're making a bigger purchase, if you can't afford it 3 times, especially if it's an impulse purchase, do not buy it. If you can buy it 3 times without absolutely leaving yourself starving, or your bills being unpaid, or just putting yourself under stress and uncertainty, realistically, if it's something you don't need, don't buy it. When you're making more money during a period of time, like let's say during holidays, because you took on extra shifts or because you were free from college or whatever you're doing on the side, try to set aside a bit more money so you can have a month of bills and things you have to pay off put aside just in case of an emergency. This provides such a safe feeling, and it's also very important. This can prevent from you having to take out a loan or borrow money in the future in case an emergency happens. Like let's say your car breaks down and you can't commute to work, you will have set some money aside for an emergency like this, and you will also feel more safe simply by the fact that you know, even if you're living close paycheck to paycheck, you do have some money behind you in case something happens, as simple as you getting sick and you missing a week from work. You know, you might not be guaranteed to be paid for that week of sick leave, but your bills still have to be paid. And if you have a loan, that still has to be paid, or it will be counted as a missed payment. This is not easy, but try to have more than one stream of income. Even if you're working somewhere part-time, try to have, you don't necessarily have to have a full-blown business running online or working a full-time job and a part-time job, but simply having something on the side that you can even know you can resort to in case of an emergency, and knowing you can make money through something if you had to, even if it's not the most pleasant thing or not the most enjoyable thing. It's also better before an emergency happens, or let's say you don't get enough hours at your workplace, or you're in the process of changing workplaces, you know you can resort to another way of money making. Staying motivated can be hard sometimes, but it's so important when it comes to money. If you owe someone money or you have a loan taken out, you can't let the fact that you owe someone money get to you. You have to try and flip it and instead see it as a goal to pay off and kind of like the start of a path to financial freedom. It sounds silly, but it works when you owe someone money and you see it as only a burden. It can also feel so frightening just during the time period, and it can be mentally exhausting, especially if it's a bigger amount. But putting it down on paper and having a clear plan and then seeing it as a challenge or a goal instead of just a burden can motivate you to pay it off. Also, as silly as it sounds, but sometimes from time to time, too often is now good, but from time to time going on Pinterest or Instagram and seeing those aesthetically pleasing and motivating pictures of, I guess, the surface level wealth sometimes can be motivating and can re-spark the little trigger inside of you to keep pushing, to pay off the loan, to give you hope that you can be more financially comfortable. Again, too often is not good. I feel like you can become desensitized to it and just in a little fantasy bubble, but sometimes that little push and that little, even though sometimes they're artificial pictures, but you do know people are living these lives and you know it is possible one way or another. It can be motivating and it can be a gentle reminder that it is possible. That's going to be everything for today's video. Thank you for joining me today, and I hope you found some beneficial information. Do let me know in the comments any unique tips or tricks you have yourself when it comes to money, and also let me know what video you'd like to see next. And in the meantime, you can find me on Instagram and TikTok, where I am also very active. And until the next video, stay safe and keep the money flowing.